Hey developers, so if you have been paying attention in the Vue world, you may have noticed that there's a lot of discussion on Vue 3.0 and more importantly, the new Function API. If you don't know anything about that, I actually created a video about it last week. I'll make sure there's a link in the description. But basically there is a proposal out there, an RFC, to create this pretty cool, I think, way of creating Vue apps using this new setup. You have these new value way to create reactive state. There's a new computed property increment, watching on mounted. You basically have, you can create everything inside your export default inside this function type manner, which I think is really neat. And I wanted to show you guys how that works because what recently just came out is a plugin. It's a Vue 2 plugin for the function-based RFC. And so what this allows you to do is in your Vue 2 apps, you can actually add functions as if you're in a Vue 3 app, which of course Vue 3 is not out yet. So I thought it was really cool, cool plugin that we can start playing around with and test things out. So I'm going to go ahead and install it, and we're going to see how we can take this app and get it upgraded. So let's begin. Hey, and if you don't know, my name is Erik. I'm a full-stack software developer. I'm also the author of the Vue.js in Action book. If you want a copy of the first chapter, it's in the description below. So I created this really funny, silly app a few days ago, and all it does is I took the Vue starter project with the latest version of Vue and the latest version of Vue CLI, and all I did is I just created, with Comic Sans font, this random dog images. You hit get dogs, it increments, and then you see a new dog here, and you could also increment it here. I have this home and about view here, and inside the home view, you could see this is all it is. I just have this div. I have some really simple classes where I'm just centering images and adding in certain fonts and a little bit of a hover effects on here. And all I have is this click handler that I do this press me for incrementing the dog, and then a get dog function method that is, you can see here, here's my method for press me that just updates the counter and logs in the console, and then I use just the fetch API to go through this free dog.ceo and random image creator for dog images, and then I have my data. So let's see if we can get this upgraded to the new function API. And just to keep everything clear, and as I mentioned in my previous video, the new function API is completely additive. You don't have to move over to this, but as Vue 3 comes out, we don't know when, maybe sometime later this year, maybe next year, this will be an important new way you can create Vue apps, and I think it's worth going over. And by the way, in this video, we're just gonna look at the API. We're gonna just use the plugin here. I'm not going to go through any advanced scenarios, so just kind of a quick look at it. So to get it installed, by the way, I do say so a lot, so maybe keep a counter in the comment section of how many times I say so today. So I'm going to do npm install, write this function right here, or if you have yarn, and I'm going to hit enter here, and it should install. And this is just the terminal inside my Vue Visual Studio Code and my Vue app. So let's give it a second. It is installed now. As of this recording, it's 2.0.6. If you look at our package.json, we can look right here, and you can see now, and our dependencies, we now have Vue Function API right here, 2.0.6. And by the way, using Vue 2.6. So now we got to go in and do the rest of the configuration, which I believe is in this router file. Or if you're not using the router, it would be in a different file where you have your Vue.use. And it just says right here that you need to add the plugin. So that'd be simple enough. So I'm going to copy and paste this. You can see here's the plugin, and I'm just going to create another Vue.use. And I'm going to add the plugin here. Good. So I went ahead and saved. And now we're going to see if it works. So let's start off something simple. And here I have a press me. I don't have a on any sort of hooks, like a created hook or anything like that. So let's just begin and do that. So I'm going to put a setup function method inside here. And inside this setup, I'm going to test out the onMounted. So to do that, we have to do this import here. I'm just going to copy and paste it for the sake of time. Put it up here, if I can get it. Okay, copy. There it is. And right now we don't need any of these other things, so I'm just going to delete all this. So I just want the onMounted. And the way it works is now everything's inside this setup hook here, this setup function. So I have this onMounted, and I'm going to have my little arrow function. And I'm going to do something. So I'm just going to see if it works. I'm going to run a console log test. And I'm going to save it. And now every time the app loads, it should have tests show up just as if it was on the mounted or created hook. By the way, the lifecycle hooks, you can take a look down here for the different lifecycle hooks. And I think right now we only have, these are the new ones: on created, on before mount, on mounted, and on XXX. On XXX, all current lifecycle hooks will have an equivalent on XXX function that can be used inside setup. So on updated, on unmounted, things like that. But we'll see if this mounted one works. Now I'm going to run npm run serve. It's going to go and start up my server again. Okay, it's up and running. Now if I look at my example, I'm going to open up my inspect window, console. Okay, cool, I see test. So it looks like it's working. So I'll put mounted in here. And I see mounted, so it definitely is working correctly. Now you can see here too that this setup has two arguments that are passed into it: props and context. And so these variables that are passed into it are, as it mentions, the props, which I don't have any props being passed in, and also the context. So let's just take a look at that. So if I do console log ctx, and it starts, you can see here is what's in the context object. It has adders, emit, parent, refs, root, slots. Nice. Let me see here. You can see here too, if I do ctx dot, I have in here the slots, adders, emits, props, everything I want. Now, one question a lot of people have had so far is, how do I do the new function API with Vuex? And so you can actually go into the root here, and you have option, if we had it set up, we would have option to actually get the Vuex inside here to do what we need to do, which I don't have it in here, but we could use that, which is cool. So let's see if we can convert this over. I want to make this a little smaller. So what we need to do is we have this created, which has this get dog. So we can do it on mounted or on created. Just depends on what we want to do. But I guess we could do on created. So we'll do, so instead of on mounted, we'll do on created. And we'll make sure that's imported in. On created. So that one, now we'll do it. And instead of doing this get dog, we'll do this get dog right here, which we're going to have to change that. So I'm going to just comment that out. And then next thing we need to do is we have these methods that we need to move over and this data. So let's do the methods first. So to do the methods, they're pretty easy. What we're going to do is we're going to create something called, I don't know, const press me. And that's going to equal a function here. And then we're going to just copy and paste everything inside press me inside here. Well, we'll do this. We'll just copy and paste it. And then we'll have something else in here. We'll do const. So I don't forget what I'm doing. I'm just going to comment this out as I go. And we're going to have a const for the get dog. And I apologize the clicky sound on my keyboard. It's a little bit of clicky. And I'm going to just copy and paste this in there. All the fetch. Which is good. And I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to make sure I don't have a problem here. Or too many brackets. There we go. Perfect. So now I have a get dog, I have a press me on created, and then I have these data objects. So I have a counter and image. So for these, I'm going to create, I'll put this at the top. I'm going to create two variables. I'm going to call one, so the two we want to do is counter and image. So I'll do const counter, and something that's new inside this function API is I'll use this something called value, and this basically creates a reactive property. So I'll just put something like that in here, and I'll make sure this value right now is not in there, so I'm going to import it in from here, value, and it said right here it was 0, counter, and then image is the other one. So I'm going to copy and paste that, called image, and I'll put the value as nothing. Okay, so now we have our counter image, and we have a list. Now the way we actually get this inside our app is we need to return something. So we'll have this return object, and this is where we're going to return everything. So we're going to return our press me. We're going to return get dog. By the way, since we're using ES6, the same thing is doing this, but we don't need to do that because it equals the same. We'll do the get dog, and then we'll do the counter, and then finally we'll do the image. So those are everything in here. And we got an error on the get dog because I forgot the comma here. Okay, so that should be correct. And just for semantics, I'm going to get rid of this data here. Okay, and we don't need this. So we have press me, get dog, counter image. Now a few other things that we need to do is now, since it's all inside the setup method, we don't need this everywhere, so we can get rid of this dot counter. So we just do dot counter, image, counter. Okay, I think that's everything we need. I'm looking back through here. Oops, right here. It'd be just counter. So we don't need any of this anywhere. Cool, so I'm gonna save it. And we're gonna look back here, and we're gonna refresh it. And it said, oh, image is read only. So I need to take a look at that since I'm doing this image here as value. Oops, so actually since we're using this image here, we have to do, since we're using this value, you actually can't edit these directly. So what we need to do is, anytime where we increment these counter image, we actually have to do counter.value, and that'll actually do the actual value. Otherwise, we'll get an error. So we'll do image.value, counter.value. Cool. So that should work. So if I don't make any mistakes here, I'm going to save it. I'm going to go back to the YouTube example. Cool. It's still mounted. It still showed the picture. If I hit get dogs, it showed the new one. If I hit increment dog count, cool. So it looks like it's working as expected in this new format. So I'll just go over it one more time. So now we have this new value that makes some reactive properties. We have the onCreated hook, which is right inside this export default. I have the press me, which is the other method. I have the get dog, which is right here. and then I'm returning them all, and that's how I kind of converted it all over. Okay, I just want to show you guys one more thing. There's a couple things we didn't do. We obviously didn't do computed properties, but you just do computed, and you just import it in. We didn't do watchers, and maybe I'll do a longer tutorial later on how to do that. I want to show one nice thing about the way we do this. Since these are functions, we can go ahead and just create a file and import them in. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it functions, for lack of a better word, folder name. And then I'm going to call one, I don't know, func.js. And then inside this folder, I'm going to export some of my functions out of the view here, the home view. So let's try to do this here. So I'm gonna move over some of these right now. Let's move them over, all of them over, and see how we could do that. So I could certainly put these in different files if I wanted to, but let's just grab all this, and I'm going to copy it first, and then I'm going to paste it here. So you can see here I have all these consts. So I just need to be able to use these values, which aren't anywhere here. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to use the export. So I'm going to export the counter. I'm going to export the image, and then the onCreated. I'm going to export so for these, what I'll do is I'll create a variable and I'll export it that way. So I'll export on, we'll call it created. And I'll do const here. And we'll do export const press me, export const get dog. Okay, so we have all the exports of everything in here. And one thing I noticed is when you do this, you also need to, I'll show you what happens. So we're gonna go back to the home, and I'm going to just comment all this out. And I'm going to import in everything we need. So we need get dog, we need press me, counter, and image. So I'll do press me, counter, and image from, and then we just need to go down one, and we'll do, let's see here, we'll get into the functions right here. And now if you do this, I'll save it, you'll see there's actually a slight error. So if I do it, it says failed to compile, cannot find module ... functions. So let me fix that first. It'd be function/func, I believe. And then you see this error, Vue Function API must call Vue use plugin before using a function. So what you have to do is you have to grab the router and grab the plugin. I'll just copy and paste this and put it inside your function file, which I'll put in at the top. Actually, I'll put this before here, and I'll delete this one. So now it's in this file. Now if I do that, it says Vue is not defined. I have to import Vue too, which I will grab right here, so I don't, and I'll paste it. Cool, and it just says onCreate, and one thing you can't do is onCreated gets called outside of setup. So you can't put the onCreated outside of setup. So we can, that's okay, we can take this back out. So I'm going to take this on setup, and then I'm going to go to back to the home, and I'm going to paste it. And I'm not going to do that. It will be onCreated here, and that will still work. So now I'm doing this, and I'll save it. OnCreated gets called outside of setup, so let me make sure it's not in the other one. I'll save this, There we go. So now it's working as it did before, but this time now it's all extracted into its own file. And you can see how powerful this is, because now I can take all my functions, put them in its own file, or put them in separate files. It's more composable. You can actually use something similar using mixins, but it's not as clean as this. So this one works really well. So you can see all these are exported from our functions file, and it's really clean and easy to set up. I'll delete all this for now. So that's all I have to show you guys today. I just wanted to show the Function API. I really like it. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate it. Take care.